Good afternoon and welcome to the Business Apprenticeships webinar that we are running today. My name's Jodie. I'm from the Solent Apprenticeship Hub and I'm joined today by my two colleagues, Simon and Lisa from HTP Apprenticeship College. They're here to tell you a little bit more about what apprenticeships look like in the business sector. It's such a big, wide sector and there's so much opportunity available, certainly in this area and I know across the country in this particular sector, and it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So here you'll find out a little bit more about what that means, how you can get involved and what sort of opportunities there are. Just a quick little bit of housekeeping before we start. We are all working from home, so do bear with us if there's any internet issues. If you hear dogs barking or children playing, please just ignore them and bear with us. Normal service will be resumed as quickly as possible. Without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Lisa and Simon, and I'll see you at the end for the question and answers. There is a section on your screen that says Q&A. Any questions? No question is too small or too silly. If it is, I've probably asked it anyway. Pop it on in there and we'll deal with all your questions towards the end of the presentation. Lisa, Simon, over to you.
Thanks, Jodie.
Thanks, Jodie. Good afternoon, everybody. Jodie's already introduced us. My name's Simon Atchell. I am Head of Business Development and the Careers Lead for HTP Apprenticeship College. Lisa, do you want to introduce yourself briefly?
I will do. Hello, everyone. My name is Lisa Pilbeam and I am the Quality Support Manager at HTP Apprenticeship College, but the business sector sits within my remit and within my responsibilities, so I'm here to answer any of your questions and support Simon.
Wonderful. Okay, so we move on just to give a very, very brief background to who we are. We both work for HTP Apprenticeship College. We are predominantly Hampshire and Isle of Wight based training provider. We head office is on the Isle of Wight. We have an office in Portsmouth and we deliver training across the south, have a few contracts up into London, but we generally operate out of Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. The areas of provision that we have are apprenticeships, as you would expect. We also run some pre-apprenticeship programs, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And we also run some full-time courses, but these are specifically on the Isle of Wight at the moment. As a training provider, we've been going since February 2000, so we're just over 20 years old. And as I say, we're incredibly proud of our success rates. We work very proactively with all of our learners and employers, and success rates and quality is absolutely central to what we do. So, hopefully in time we'll be delighted to potentially work with you. Ooh, so I've managed to flip that twice. So let's go back. So for anyone who doesn't know what an apprenticeship is, I appreciate that this isn't the first of the webinars and there have been several around apprenticeships, but just to really touch on what apprenticeships are. If you've just leaving school or leaving college this year and you're looking at your options, apprenticeships are just one of the options available to you. But to summarize, an apprenticeship is a real job. It's not just something necessarily for 12 months and a bit of work experience and out the door. This is a real job where you will be earning a wage. It won't necessarily be huge salaries if it's the first job, but the salary that you should be gaining should be appropriate for the job and the level of job that you're doing for the organisation. You'll be working predominantly, in most instances, full-time, but for at least 30 hours a week. The number of hours that you'll be working will obviously be down to what the employer that you're working for wants. In the business sector, typically 37 and a half is fairly usual. Some can be up to sort of 40 hours. But an apprenticeship is about a real job, but it is a job with training. Okay, so you're going to be studying towards a vocational qualification that is going to be relevant for the job role that you're doing for that organisation. It's on and off job training. You'll be learning from the mentor that you'll be assigned within the workplace. You'll be having time studying towards your qualification, and depending on which training provider you work for, some of the off-job training may be away from the organisation and in with the college or the training provider, and I'll touch a little bit more on that in a minute. But you will get a contract of employment. You will be paid for your holidays. Not as much holidays you would get at school or college, I'm afraid, unless if you're very lucky. And it's not usual these days that actually you will get paid for sick pay. But again, that will depend on the employer that you are working in. As I say, it's a real job, real responsibilities. You are going to be playing a very proactive role in working for the employer that you're working for, making a real difference to their business on a day-to-day basis. Apprenticeships must last now at least 12 months, but can go up to 4 years. Around the business sector, it's typically 13 to 18 months. When we get into management, it's perhaps up to sort of 20, 24 months. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about that. And for those people who think that they want to go to university to get a degree, absolutely, it's still a very valid way, and our job isn't to discount or suggest you shouldn't go to university, because for a lot of careers, going to university is absolutely the right way of doing it. But what's happened in the last few years is that you can now achieve a degree through the apprenticeship route, and it's a really, really exciting opportunity available for you. And so when you're starting to look at your research for your future career plans, is that if you've only thought about the traditional university route, look at the apprenticeship route, and we can offer some advice and guidance around that, because it's about having a plan B. A lot of people think about apprenticeships as just being a short-term thing. Nationally, 90% of employers retain their apprentices within their organisation. A lot of businesses don't want to invest in you, whether it's for 1 or 2 or 3 years, just to see you walk out the door. They do want you to stay. For HTP, the figure's actually quite a little bit higher than that. 96% of the apprentices who successfully complete their apprenticeship remain in employment. So yeah, with a lot of the public sector apprentices, they may offer you an apprenticeship contract for the first part, but it's very, very unusual for you not to be offered a permanent position. May not be necessarily in the position that you started from, but certainly within the organisation. Touched on apprenticeships, different levels of apprenticeships. So the level you start at will depend on a little bit about your academic background, but not too much. It's about where you are within your career. So if you are just completing GCSEs this year and you've got no work experience to your name to date, it wouldn't be unusual for you to start off at level 2. If you're finishing college, having done a level 3, academic qualification such as a BTEC, or you've been at school doing A levels, and you've been working part-time and got some employability skills, well, then your apprenticeship might well be starting at level 3. And certainly in the business sector, the focus really is now at level 3. And again, we're going to touch on that later on. There are now higher apprenticeships available at levels 4 and 5, and for HTP, we deliver those around business. We deliver them in management. There's health and social care, learning and development. So there are a number of higher qualifications, and these can be an excellent way if you've had a lot more experience within your work life, or for some people that are looking to upskill for the job that they're doing now. They may have been in employment for 10, 15 years, because apprenticeships aren't just about young people these days. They can be of any age. The key thing is that you've got to be learning new skills. And so we, as an organisation, see lots of people at levels 4 and 5. And of course, I mentioned about the degree apprenticeships, and locally, Portsmouth, Solent University, and others are all starting to offer more and more degree apprenticeships. And these start at level 4 and actually go through to level 8. So there are doctorate apprenticeships. Solent University, who we have a partnership with, are offering MBAs, level 7 degree apprenticeships for senior leaders, and I know Portsmouth do the same. So So there's a fantastic career progression route right the way through to obtaining a degree. The whole thing about apprenticeships, though, about developing what we call skills, knowledge, and behaviours for the job role that you do. So the skills, you're developing the skills, and you're being shown how to do the job role that you're doing. The knowledge is the theory behind it, so you understand why you do the things that you do. And as we go through the presentation, Lisa will explain a little bit more about that, and also about the behaviours. And the behaviours are about what's expected of you as a professional, whatever job role that you're doing. So working in business, Jodie touched on at the beginning, it is an incredibly diverse sector, if you like. Business apprenticeships are available in all sorts of different roles, but the whole point of the business sector is to help organisations run more effectively and primarily to make a profit, and everybody has a say or a role within making that business to be profitable and to be successful. You would think most apprenticeships, or most apprenticeships in business, are typically Monday to Friday, 9 till 5, some 9 till 5:30, 8:30 till 5:30, some have an hour for lunch. We have half an hour for lunch, and then we finish a little bit earlier on a Friday. So it really does depend on the organisation that you're working for. But as you're, more and more flexible working is now becoming available. You might even get things like dress down Fridays, and all sorts of things. It is becoming a more flexible work practice, and certainly in the situation we're at the moment, we're all home working, as you can see. So we expect that to probably increase over the forthcoming years. So where can you do apprenticeships if for the business sector? I've just popped up there a few examples. You have the private sector and what we call the public sector. So our apprenticeships are both of those. The public sector being typically organisations like hospitals, councils, government departments, the civil service and things like that. And then the private sector, which you imagine is private companies, and I've just listed, we work with quite a few solicitors, estate agents, call centres, and if you were to walk around your local business park, pretty much every single business that you come across will have some requirement for business support. Now, whether that's somebody on reception or whether it's someone behind the scenes working in finance, there's roles available in virtually every single business that you will come across. The type of apprenticeships that are available. So this is an exhaustive list, but these are the kind of main areas that you would expect to be available in the business sector. So business administration is probably the largest apprenticeship or the highest number of apprentices across the country is probably in the business administration. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about today. But you can do customer service. If you're interested in sort of recruitment, there's human resources. You can actually do a recruitment apprenticeship. So when you're actually working for a recruitment organisation, bringing staff into people's organisations, working payroll. If you've got an interest in finance, for example, there's project management, legal services. You can train to become a legal secretary through that route. Marketing, digital marketing. Digital marketing wasn't a thing really sort of 10-15 years ago as a career, but it's you have people, and especially young people, who are utilizing social media channels day in, day out. You're much more clued to the skills and that employers want, compared to people, say, of my age. Event management is a specific part of marketing. A lot of organisations have events, and that's quite a popular apprenticeship. Sales, and then there is the management apprenticeship. Now, it's unlikely at the age of 16, 17, 18 you're going to start a management apprenticeship. However, is the management route is definitely an apprenticeship that you can start once you've completed your level 3, and it's one of the progression routes that would be typically to be able to go on to. And we can talk more about that later. So I'm going to hand over to Lisa at this point, because we're going to concentrate on the business administrator apprenticeship, which is the level 3 apprenticeship. And as I say, it's split into 3 areas, and I'll let Lisa talk a little bit more about the more specifics of this apprenticeship.
Thank you, Simon. So as Simon has absolutely said, what you're looking at now is about role responsibility. So you're actually looking at an occupation. So the level 3 business administrator sits within the business administration sector and is the role that you would be looking at. So again, that would be an advanced level apprenticeship at level 3. And as Simon has explained, the way that that's looked at is in 3 separate areas. So we're going to look a little bit more in detail at those areas and what you would actually be doing in that role if that was the route that you were to take. So the first area to look at is the skills. And the skills are about the things that you will be trained to actually carry out, the things that you'll be able to do for that organisation to make the difference. And the first one is IT. And what they're looking for here is that you will be skilled in the use of multiple IT packages. But those IT packages will be the ones that that organisation use. So whether you are working for an estate agent, you're working in a call centre, or you're working in a management company, it will be the IT packages that that company use, that your mentor or your trainer on site will train you in. And that's what you will demonstrate in order to achieve that section of the level 3 business administrator. Within your role, you'll also be making records and producing documents. That might be letters to customers, that might be emails externally and internally, that might be reports. It might be finance reports if that's the department that you're in, but there will be an end product to that. You'll have to make decisions. So the skills that you have will be about how you make those decisions, that you use sound and logical reasoning to make your decisions, that you consider your organisation and your customers within that organisation to make sure that those decisions affect those people in the best way. Whilst you're doing that, you'll also learn about interpersonal skills, and that's about working with other people. That's about being a productive member of the team that you're working with. And then in the larger organisation, and maybe that organisation is a small part of many other organisations, and you'll understand how that works. Which leads us nicely onto communication. So one of the skills that you will need as a level 3 business administrator is the ability to communicate with different people at different levels and in different ways. So that might be like we're doing today, that might be verbally and face to face, or it might be back to the record and document production, it might be something written, or it might be whichever way your organisation chooses to communicate with their customers and with the people internal to the organisation. Everything that you do will need to be of the highest quality. So the next skill is looking at quality, and that's the standard of the work that you're producing, making sure that if it's a written document, you've proofread it, it hasn't got mistakes in it, and it sits within the way that company would want their communication to look. In order to do that, you need to learn how to be planned and organised. Simon's talked about the hours that you might be working, but this is looking more at the tasks that you'll be undertaking within those hours. So initially, your mentor or tutor might be asking you to do certain things at certain times. And then as your training progresses, you might be asked to be responsible for planning that those things take place and organising your time and maybe the time of somebody else. So you might be responsible for planning for somebody's diary, putting appointments in, or looking to see how the business works. And all of that then fits nicely under project management. And that's you working on a specific project within the organisation that may involve one or more people. You might look at project management tools. You might look at planning, scoping, how that project works, taking it to its end, making sure it's successful, and then evaluating how well that project has worked for you and for the organisation. So as well as looking at skills, as Simon explained, we want you to be able to do the tasks. Your organisation, your employer will expect that you can complete those tasks to the standard required, but you need to understand why you're completing them to be able to transfer those skills as you go on through your learning and on to further learning. So the first area is about understanding an organisation. So understanding what that organisation is there to achieve. Does it have a vision or a mission statement? Does it have specific goals? And if it does, what are the objectives to get to those goals? And the value of your skills is, where do you fit in that? And you will fit into that vision, because that's why employers are very keen to take on apprentices and give them the opportunity to learn the skills and knowledge and move on through their own organisations or move on to other ones. So you need to understand what you do fits in with what everybody else does. And if you don't do your role, what happens when that doesn't take place? Stakeholders is a word to describe who is interested, who has a vested interest in your success and in the success of the organisation. So who might you be accountable to? You might have customers in the organisation, or they might be outside of the organisation. You might have investors. You might work in a school that has a board of governors, parents, Ofsted. There may be people within that organisation. Whichever organisation you're in, you need to demonstrate that you know and you understand who those stakeholders are. You will need to know about laws, relevant regulation, things like health and safety, data protection. If you're dealing with information that relates to your colleagues or relates to customers, you need to understand the law and what it says with regard to how you keep that information, where you keep it, and how long you keep it for. Therefore, your company will have their own policies and procedures. So it's important that you know and understand what those policies and procedures are, where you can find them, where you can refer to them, how you implement them, what you do at work to make sure that you work to the standard required. Those business fundamentals are very much about your organisation and where they see themselves going forward, the quality standards, the expectations, and working within the much wider industry. There may be processes. How do you do something? Why do you do something? And a particular way to do something. And all in all, you need to understand that your own organisation works in a certain way, but there will be external factors to that. So things like, a very good example, currently we're having to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. That's an external, meaning outside factor, and it's changing the way all businesses are working. So you need to understand how those changes happen and what will happen to your organisation moving forward. And finally, we've talked about the skills, so that's doing the do. We've talked about knowledge, understanding why you do what you do, but where there's an expectation under this apprenticeship standard that you do things in a certain way. And the most important one, the one at the top, is about being professional. And that covers everything: how you dress, how you speak to people, how you liaise with people in the organisation and outside. And that leads you on to your own personal qualities. So that would be being attentive to people, listening, developing your skills in that area to show that you are a valued member of the team. Managing performance. You will have tasks that you need to complete, so you need to make sure that you're organised, that you're accountable, that you're telling people when you've finished a piece of work and you're ready to move on to the next bit, and that you're working within the goals of the organisation. You might need to adapt. There might be the best plans laid down, but things change. Outside factors change the way we do things, and you need to be able to be adaptable to those changes. So you'll demonstrate that in the way that you do your tasks. And finally, responsibility. You have to have an accountability. You will be responsible for certain aspects of the way that business works and how they report to people. And all of those together mean that you will be a competent business administrator. But how do you demonstrate that? Well, that's quite different. If those of you have maybe experienced apprenticeships in the past, you'll know that things have moved on and that the assessment will occur throughout your learning. So as we said, the typical practical learning period is over a year, so usually about 13 to 15 months. And that's when you'll be learning those skills, learning the knowledge and showing those behaviours. But that will be checked throughout. So you will have a training consultant, an assessor, somebody that comes to visit you in the workplace from a training provider, and you will have somebody in your own organisation that works closely with you on a regular basis as a mentor or a guide, and they will take you through the learning, and they will assess you throughout. So they will be watching how you work. They will be feeding back to you on the things that you've done, on the tasks that you've undertaken. But in order to successfully achieve the apprenticeship, you have what's called an end point assessment. And that's a little bit like a driving test. So HTP and other training providers are your driving instructors. We will take you through learning the skills, knowledge and behaviours. We will assess you throughout to get you to the point of when you're ready to take your endpoint assessment or driving test. And that driving test, that endpoint assessment, will be carried out by an independent endpoint assessor. So somebody you haven't met and somebody that works for an endpoint assessment organisation. In this particular business administrator standard, there are 3 things that you will need to do in order to successfully complete your apprenticeship. Your knowledge will be tested via a 60-minute multiple choice test. There are 50 questions. It will be like an exam. You will be invigilated taking that test, but there will be questions based on all the areas that we've looked at already today, and you will then have the opportunity to answer those questions. Throughout your learning period, you will have built a portfolio. That's pieces of evidence that show that you've undertaken the tasks, the skills and the knowledge. And you will present that portfolio and you will then be questioned about it. So questions about the tasks that you've undertaken, how they were planned, how you found them, whether you would do them differently next time, and any of your experiences. In order to show that you have learnt your skills, knowledge and behaviour, around about 3 months before the end of your practical learning period, you will work on a business project. Now that's usually something that you can affect, something you can change in the organisation, make it better. You will put together that project and then you will present it to your independent endpoint assessor, around about a 10 to 15 minute presentation with 10 to 15 minutes of questions on your presentation to make sure that you fully understood what was expected and you can explain all the good things that you did in your presentation. When you've achieved all 3 of those successfully, you will then have achieved your apprenticeship and you will receive a certificate to say that that is indeed what has happened.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lisa. And carry on. And then after you've completed your level 3, don't think that it's all over and that's the end of your career. The idea is that, you know, we would hope and hopefully your employer would want you to continue your learning and develop some higher skills. And I did touch briefly on higher degree apprenticeships earlier, but just to give you some of the sort of specific routes that we see apprentices go on to complete. These are the higher apprenticeships that are available now for the sector. So junior management consultant, learning and development consultant, if that is an area, if you're working in a training department within an organisation. Associate project manager, that's becoming a really popular apprenticeship you can do. And as you can see from the degree below, it's something that you can then go on to achieve a degree apprenticeship with as well. Probably the most widely used higher apprenticeship certainly that we offer is what we call the operations departmental manager. It's an equivalent really of a foundation degree in management, and it is about managing your area of responsibility. So although you don't necessarily have to line manage a team specifically, there is still very much the purpose of managing people within the organisation, and that could be on a project that you're working on. For example, you might be managing staff within that project, although you don't necessarily manage those people on a day-to-day basis. If you've got an interest in HR, as I say, there's a level 3 HR support apprenticeship, but there's also a level 5 HR consultant part partner apprenticeship, and that includes a level 5 diploma with CIPD. So if you want to become an HR consultant, that is definitely a really valuable apprenticeship you could be doing. But as I say, you can go on to do degree apprenticeships, chartered management degree. Portsmouth University, we know offer that as well as Solent University. And with Portsmouth, if you've done the level 5 operations departmental manager, you can actually then fast track the chartered management degree apprenticeships. You have to complete a unit around marketing before you start, but it allows you to complete the chartered management degree apprenticeship in a further 18 months. So actually, getting your degree through the apprenticeship route may take a little bit longer, but you can still do it. And the key thing is, all of these apprenticeships are going to be funded through the government and an employer contribution, or by the employer. So when you look at achieving your chartered management degree, it may take you 8 years in total from the time you've done A levels and your level 3, your level 5, and then your chartered management degree apprenticeship. But you've been earning money month in, month out, and your apprenticeship's not going to be costing anything. So if you did a degree the traditional route, it wouldn't be unusual to come out of university with £60,000 worth of debt. If you've been working and earning on average, say, £20,000 for 8 years, that's £160,000 plus your student fees paid for. It's almost a £200,000 difference between doing it the apprenticeship route. So it's just an interesting way to look at it and say, don't discount. I'm not asking you to discount the traditional university route, because that's not what it's all about. It's just about looking at other ways of doing it. And then the senior leader degree apprenticeship is a level 7, and that would be something that you can progress on to from the chartered management route, or if you've got a lot of work experience but no formal qualifications, if you're working at that appropriate level. Okay, so I'm just going to play you a video. It's great for Lisa and I to talk about it, but I actually wanted to. We've got a video from a young lady called Rosie. Rosie, I'm not going to explain too much before the video, because she will talk about it. But Rosie's one of our apprentices who's recently completed now her level 5, and in fact that she's now a manager and mentor for another apprentice that's within her department. So I'm just going to play you Rosie's story for a couple of minutes, and it'll just put things hopefully into real life for you.
School for me, I found it quite difficult, struggled to concentrate sometimes. I think it is tough in a school environment, especially being like a teenager. Sometimes you're not knowing what you want to do. Sometimes your friends have got it all figured out, and you're sort of like, oh, they all know what they want to do and I have no idea. And I think I learn better when I'm doing something. So when I'm sat in a classroom and I'm just like talked to, I don't necessarily take it in. The academic side, I just didn't really feel like I was achieving anything. So I came to know about HTP and that they provide apprenticeships and you can learn sort of lots of things on the job. I went into a level 2 business and administration qualification, where I just sort of learned lots within the workplace, made friends there, and I found that I was learning things so quickly because I was learning as I went along. I actually feel like I gained more in a way, because obviously I was able to go into employment straight away. Quite a lot of employees look for experience, and I know I've got friends that have really struggled to get into the career that they've gone to uni for like 4 years for unqualified. They've struggled to get into it because they don't have the experience, which is obviously really sad for them because obviously they've worked very hard. But obviously I've worked hard too, because with an apprenticeship, obviously you're in full-time employment whilst doing your qualification. I've definitely become more confident. Like when I started, I was quite quiet, didn't really ever want to give my opinion, always sort of just doing as I was told in a way. But I guess you do, because you go in, you don't have much experience, you aren't just going to listen. But now obviously being an assistant operations manager, I have to make sometimes quite difficult decisions. I have to work with quite senior people, so senior medics, senior nurses, senior managers. I never thought when I went into level 2 business and admin qualification that in 5 years time I'd be managing services within medicine as well as 26 individuals.
Wow.
So it's it's a massive achievement for me, and without blowing my own trumpet, I'm very proud of myself. If the school environment isn't for you and you're not really sure what you want to do, I would definitely recommend taking on an apprenticeship, because you're gaining the qualification as well as experience and you're getting paid for it.
There we go. So for Rosie, she joined HTP after starting her sixth form, decided halfway through the first year that sixth form wasn't for us, and she's come down an incredible journey. She mentioned in the video, she did level 2, she then did level 3 administration, level 4 administration, and then level 5 operations management, and now she's going to go on to do the chartered management degree. She's done all of that within the NHS trust that she works for. She's worked very, very hard, but it just shows you that there is a brilliant career path available to you if you want it. So as well as the main sort of apprenticeship qualifications you're going to be doing for the sector, it's important just to touch on that maths and English is part of all apprenticeships, no matter what one you do. Now, if you've achieved maths and English at school or college at grades 4 to 9 or old school A to C, then as long as we've got your certificates, you're going to be exempt. If you don't have them, and it's very, very common for people to actually still struggle with maths or English, don't worry. We won't be putting you through GCSE, but we will, or the training provider that you're working with will be working with you to achieve what they call functional skills. So yeah, it's slightly different from GCSE, and the functional skills are in maths and English. Some apprenticeships, there was a ICT, but I think that's pretty much phased out now for all sectors. There's 1 or 2 that you still have to do ICT in, but for what we're looking at, it is around the maths and English. And I can't comment for all colleges and training providers how they operate. Some will still run classroom-based sessions for maths and English. For us, we will deliver your maths and English alongside of the rest of the qualification on a one-to-one basis. And just to really give you a very, very quick snapshot of how it works, is that what we will do is undertake an initial assessment with you before you come onto program. It just gives us an understanding of your current working at level. What we don't want to do is set you up to fail, and it just gives us an idea of how much help and support. Then we do a diagnostic, which looks at within the level that you're operating at, what areas of maths or English do you need help with. What we don't want to do is spend time setting you a whole syllabus to work through and achieve, when actually there's only maybe 1 or 2 areas of maths or English that you just want to polish up on to enable you to get through the exams. There will be some classroom sessions if colleges do it that way. Generally, we will do it face-to-face as long as you're alongside your learning, as I said. But a lot of the resources these days are online, and you can study. Our job is to give you all of the help and support, whether it's on your main qualification or whether it is with the maths and English. There will be face-to-face reviews, individual tutoring. And because it's all about relationships, and actually sitting down with you and talking through the areas of maths and English you need to do it just seems to work really well. And don't worry about the exams. We'll do worry about exams. Everyone worries about exams. But the idea is, you will be given lots of time, lots of practice papers to pass the exams. And because some of the exams are now done online, we want to give you lots of practice for how to navigate the exams on the day, so you don't spend half your time trying to work out how the system uses it. So that's really important. And then the exam, like you will have done in other parts of your apprenticeship, or will do in other parts of your apprenticeship, and also as you did with your GCSEs, as Lisa said, they are invigilated. So you will be coming into a centre and going into an exam, sort of setting. And when you've taken the exams with functional skills, it takes about sort of a month to get the results back. So it's not quite like GCSEs where it's only released once or twice a year. It's a rolling program, and as I say, within a month you would get your results. The important thing about apprenticeships, though, is that this is quite different from school or college. This is your job. This is a real job that you've got to hold on, and and you're going to be busy in your job role now. It's your qualification, though, that the apprenticeship is your qualification. We need you to take ownership of it. There will be attendance. Each college and each training provider will have their off-job training delivered in different ways. We run some workshops. Some of the more traditional colleges will say, right, every Tuesday from 9 till 5, you're going to be coming to do off-job training with us. We don't do it that. We try to do a very flexible approach to off-job training. We will come into the workplace to do it. You can study away from, in at your desk, but away from your sort of day-to-day job role. It can be very, very flexible. You're going to have targets set, so they've got to be agreed between yourself and the employer and us. And the important thing is that there's going to be, those targets are going to have time restrictions set alongside them. So we need you to submit your work timely, keep on top of your work. And if you do all of that, and you've got good support from us and excellent support from the mentor within the workplace, you're going to have a very, very successful outcome and achieve your qualification, achieve your apprenticeship timely, and put you in a really good position to progress your career on further. Slide there, when can you start your apprenticeship? Okay, so basically after you've completed your GCSEs or A levels. Officially, if you're coming onto an apprenticeship from GCSEs, you are on the school roll book until the last Friday in June. So you can, in essence, start the following Monday. A levels, once you've taken your A levels, you can start an apprenticeship. You could go once you've finished your full-time course. If you've decided that you want to undertake a traineeship, and a traineeship is for those people who perhaps don't really know what they want to do or need a bit more help and support in securing an apprenticeship. A traineeship is kind of try before you buy. So one of the progression routes from a traineeship is onto your apprenticeship. You might be working part-time somewhere and think, actually, I really like this. And, we see a lot of people, having done a part-time job, perhaps at weekends or summer, convert their casual job into a more formal position. And an apprenticeship is a great route to do that. We say it's never too early to register your interest. Now, a lot of employers that we work with, they will take on their apprentices when they need them within their business. Some of the other apprenticeship sectors, such as engineering, may have a more formal enrolment, perhaps in September. But for us, it's very much that, so we get apprenticeship recruitment all throughout the year. And we do get a number of people who choose to do perhaps go start A levels in September because that's what they think that they want to do. Perhaps parents are pushing them to do it because they think that's the right thing that they want to do. But A levels is very different. It's a big step up from GCSE to A levels. It's a different way of studying, and it's not for everybody. So if you find out yourself that it's not right and it's not working for you, don't think that you've missed out on starting an apprenticeship. You can come to us at any point of the year, and as I say, I would say to anybody out there, get to know your local colleges, your local training providers, because sometimes not all apprenticeships get advertised. So get an application in, get to know them, they get to know you, and then they'll be able to help. How do you apply for an apprenticeship? Well, obviously, on the government's website, on the .gov website, if you type into Google "find an apprenticeship," you can do that. I know there've been other webinars around this, so you can search for what apprenticeships are available across the country or in your location, and you don't have to register at this point to search. Go and have a look to see what's on offer. Now, being honest, just at this precise time, with everything that's going on in the world, we aren't seeing, unfortunately, huge amounts of apprenticeships being offered. There are some, and there are some in business. You know, we work with the local authorities and NHS trusts. They are still recruiting, but not perhaps in the same numbers that have been previously. So yeah, get to know your local college, get to know other training providers, because the first thing that we do when an apprenticeship comes available is we will not advertise it straight away. We will look to see who we're actually working with and who is looking for an apprenticeship, because if we can match you up quickly, then that's great. So definitely get to know the local providers. People like the NHS and the council don't necessarily always use training providers and colleges to advertise their apprenticeships. So things like the NHS jobs website and local jobs boards and council websites, definitely have a look at those and look at their careers tabs and see what's available. And of course, the whole webinar today has been arranged by Solent Apprenticeship Hub. So Jodie and her team are on hand to offer advice and guidance. And I'm not going to steal your thunder, Jodie. You might want to say a little bit more about that.
That's lovely. Thank you, Simon. Are you?
Yeah, that's us. Just you know, there's my contact details there, and obviously, if you've got any questions about business apprenticeships, just use me as a contact. Even if it's not with HTP, I'm more than happy to signpost people on. One thing I would just mention, particularly for us, is that because there aren't so many apprenticeships being advertised at the moment, we are going to be running a pre-apprenticeship program both in Portsmouth and on the Isle of Wight starting in September. And the idea of that is to give you a sort of 8 to 10, maybe 12 weeks of knowledge, some time in the classroom, but more importantly, valuable work experience with an employer, with the view to them then they would then be taking you on to an apprenticeship after that. So look out for some more information, and I'll pass the information to Jodie and her team to get out on through the right channels. That's it.
Lovely. Thank you, Simon and Lisa. Right, we've got some questions for you. What are the key skills or experience employers look for when they're recruiting a business admin apprentice?
Good question. Key skills or experience. For us personally, I'm not too worried, or not as worried about your academic history. Some employers will be saying we want grades, 4 to 9 or A to C or whatever in maths and English. I'm more interested in about you as a person going forward, looking at your potential, not what's happened in the past. School for many people can just not be the right environment for achieving maths and English. So don't worry, we're looking at about you now and where you want to get to. I'm much more interested in about your attitude, your commitment. If you've got work experience, great. Definitely try and put together a CV. We understand that CVs for young people are quite difficult to do, but anything that you've got involved with in volunteering, any sort of clubs or teams that you've been part of, you will be surprised how much really useful employability skills, such as teamwork and things like that, will come out of bits and pieces you've done. So we're really just interested in attitude and commitment, I would suggest.
I was just going to add to that, Simon. If you look at some of the key things that we looked at in the business administrator apprenticeship, if you are filling out an application form or doing a CV, make sure it's accurate. So
Accurate,
spelling, grammar,
yeah.
punctuation,
Yeah,
because that's something that would be key to move forward. And if you do get to the point of interview, think about those appearance type things and presentation, all the things that we talked about. Totally agree with everything Simon said. Those just maybe the little bits in the business sector that might make the difference.
And I see a lot of CVs coming through with I've done this with a lowercase I, and you know, and it's just those simple things. You know, I know Jodie Swanson webinars around sort of CVs and other bits and pieces, but yeah, get someone else to have a look at your CV and check it, and take some constructive criticism of it. You know, there are many good templates out there. Spend some time doing it, and certainly tailor it for each position you're going for. Again, some people, I've received applications for administration apprenticeships, and they've said in their application that they've always wanted to work in childcare or health, and they've just copied and pasted it and not proofread. So yeah, take a bit of time for that.
Okay, moving on to the next one. What are some of the roles that people generally move into once their apprenticeship in, let's say, business administration? Let me spit that out. Business administration is complete.
Oh well, you know, again, so diverse, Jodie, because you know, as we've said, the number of roles that people are doing when they even join business administration, where it can lead to. As I say, there was a slide there about, you know, the progression routes of the formal apprenticeships. Certainly, people take on more higher level responsibilities within their organisation. Now, and so some specific examples, I guess, is that we've seen people working for recruitment agencies or estate agents where they've come in and done a generic, let's say more generic administration or customer service apprenticeship, and then they've gone on to progress into the more specific professional qualifications within lettings organizations. You know, there's ALA, and you become, you know, recruitment consultants, and you know, the CIPD qualifications. So I would suggest that the you know, for a lot of our apprenticeships, people progress on to, you know, have been progressing on to higher apprenticeships in administration, the level 4. Unfortunately, that's being phased out from July, and there doesn't seem to be a real sort of straightforward replacement for that. But project management at level 4, yeah, there's going to be lots of options, and as a good training provider, we should be looking and talking to you about your progression very, very early on, not just once you've finished your apprenticeship with us.
Absolutely, yeah. Another question: what sort of wage can be expected when you start your apprenticeship?
Okay, another great question. So the actual apprenticeship wage will depend, really, it's up to the employer how much they want to pay you. The minimum hourly apprenticeship wage is, I believe, £4.10 an hour now from April. So based on 37.5 hours or whatever, it's about £150 a week. Now, that's the minimum. So it is going to be up to the organisation that you work for. It's not... it's fairly typical for some of the public sector organisations and private sector to start off with maybe 12 to 15, and then on completion 15 to 18,000 pounds. But it will depend on the organisation.
Sure, totally understand that. One of our last questions is: I'm worried my predicted grades won't be enough to be accepted onto an apprenticeship. Can you help with this?
As I said previously, I'm not worried too much about grades, and especially this year, we don't know what's going to happen with grades because they're going to be assessed in a different way. So we've got to understand that it's our job to educate employers around that as well. And I think a lot of the time it is about your potential as a good employee. So your skills, your attitude, how you can show commitment is going to far outweigh anything academic wise. That's, that would be with us. Again, not employers will see it that way, and not necessarily all training providers will see it that way. And if you see an advert for a position that wants A to C or 4 to 9 with their maths and English, and you don't have it, still put your application in, and then just get in the loop and get talking to those providers, because there may well be reasons why you haven't been successful at school in that, but a way that you can demonstrate your potential.
Lovely. Well, Lisa and Simon, I think that was a really thorough run through of business and what can be expected. So really, really useful. Thank you for your time and all the detail you were able to give us on this particular sector. What I would say is, if we haven't covered something, if there's something that you think, oh, don't feel confident enough to ask a question, Simon's contact details were obviously on the previous page. We'll get these slides out to you anyway. Our email address is on there. Please just Google Solent Apprenticeship Hub, complete the contact us form, and we can either do a one-to-one session with you over the phone, over Zoom, whatever's easiest for you. You've obviously got Simon's contact details as well. Please do get in contact. There's social media links there, and we'd be more than happy to help. On that, again, thank you, Simon and Lisa. Really appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
And we will see you again for the next webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you.